concludes that the third bullet, that was the fatal bullet, that was fired by mistake by one of the president's bodyguards.
We go first to the news, and leading the news at this hour, turning up the heat in the race for president, Mike Schneider has the but of a tragic mistake. A rifle fired accidentally by a Secret Service agent riding in the motorcade behind JFK in Dallas. The theory, which you may find plausible, you may find bizarre, is spelled out in a new book that is called Mortal Error, The Shot That Killed JFK. The author is Bonner Menninger, but the theory belongs to ballistics expert Howard Donahue, who independently has been investigating the Kennedy death for 25 years and is joining us here in New York this morning. Mr. Donahue, nice to have you with us.
Thank you, Charles.
Your theory, I've read the book, your theory depends really on trying to figure the trajectory of the fatal bullet, the final shot that did so much damage to the president's head.
Oh, that's right. Not only that, but the way the bullet performed.
All right, but to talk about the trajectory for a moment, you say that the bullet had to come not from right to left, as it would have if it had been fired from the Texas Book Depository, but from left to right. You depend on knowing the exact position of the head and knowing the exact point of the entry and exit wound. How can you know those things?
Well, you can't know the exact point, but the trajectory is true regardless of some margin for moving the head and the gun around.
And when you take that trajectory back, you say it goes back to the car that was following the president.
It goes back to the left rear seat of the follow-up car, the Queen Mary, in which the Secret Service bodyguard rode.
All right. Number two, you say that the bullet that did so much damage to the president's head, the final shot, could not have come from Oswald's gun because Oswald's gun fired bullets that had hard casing, and this bullet had to have soft casing because it broke up so much?
Very quickly, let me take you through what did happen. You could imagine John F. Kennedy and Governor Connally sitting in the blue Lincoln.
Right.
A shot rings out. A projectile enters Kennedy low on the neck, exited his throat. In the meantime, it goes through part of his spine.
That's the so-called magic bullet.
That's the so-called magic bullet. It then enters Governor Connally, who has turned around part way in the meantime. It strikes him to the right of the spine. It penetrates, breaks a rib, exits, goes right through the wrist, buries itself in his leg.
Now, so many people don't buy that that could have happened to a bullet, but you say it did, and you say because of the hard casing of the Oswald bullets that it could have survived in pretty good condition.
There's no doubt about that, as far as I can say. This was recovered later. Now let's look at the projectile that struck Kennedy in the head.
Well, we've got two bullets here that are sitting in somebody's hand. Now, the bottom bullet would have come from Oswald's gun.
This is the bullet and shell fired by the Carcano with a thick gilding copper base.
The Oswald bullet.
The Oswald bullet. This is the AR-15 or M16 bullet. This one has a velocity of 3,200 feet per second and is designed to break up on impact. This one is designed to hold together and give deep penetration.
So you're saying that the Oswald bullet, which is the one that went through the president's neck into Connally, which is so-called magic bullet, could have survived because of its hard casing. The final shot, which did fragment, you say had to come from a gun that would have fired a bullet like that top one.
That's right. They would have you believe that this bullet that penetrated two men and emerged deformed but still intact, within 2 seconds after that, another bullet hit Kennedy in the head, penetrated about 2.5 inches, and exploded. How can you say these two bullets reacted the same? They didn't. They were two radically different bullets.
All right, we have up now on the screen that bottom line in the skull is the path that you say the fatal bullet followed and would indicate that it had to have come from the left, heading in a rightward direction.
Exactly. If Oswald had fired this bullet and it hit here, the trajectory would be fairly well in line with the midline of the skull, and it would exit it somewhere in the facial area. However, the true trajectory of this fatal bullet, the skull bullet, was from left to right.
But I come back to the question I asked you originally. To know that you have to know the exact positioning of the president's head, and you have to know the exact point of where the entry wound was, and that's very much in dispute.
Oddly enough, if you look at Zapruder film number 312 and 313,
right, the frames,
Kennedy's head is exactly placed regardless of what anybody says. And the point of entrance on Kennedy's skull is precisely placed, too.
Mr. Donahue, there were 10 people in that car following the president, 6 sitting down, 4 on the running boards of that car, the Secret Service car, right behind the president. All of them say that have talked, say there was no shot fired from that car. If a bullet had gone off, a gun had gone off in that car, wouldn't somebody in that car know it?
Well, there's a good chance they did know it. In fact, I don't see how they could avoid knowing it. But then again, what good would it do admitting that one of the Secret Service agents had fired a shot accidentally and hit the president?
Because it would clear up what is the great national mystery, and it would be a simple explanation to what is a very complex question that still bedevils every American.
Well, that's the reason that we have produced the book, Mortal Error. It shows the trajectories very specifically. It shows the damage it did to the skull. It shows the direction.
Was the rifle that was being held by the Secret Service agent in that car, was it checked to see if it had been fired?
Nobody knows. It should have been, but nobody knows if it was checked or not. In fact, very few people even know there was that type of rifle there.
You know what your critics say. They say this is absurd. They rank it with the tooth fairy, bottom of the barrel kind of theory. You know you're going to get a lot of criticism when you publish this theory.
Why, of course we are. But then again, those people don't know anything about firearms, ballistics, or bullet performance.
Interesting new theory from Howard Donahue. It is in a book called Mortal Error, The Shot That Killed JFK, written by Bonner Benninger. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you, Charlie.
Good to have you here. Coming up now in 23 minutes after the hour, and Good Morning America.